Hi everybody, welcome to Puddinwood Avenue. My name is Bindi. Let's see what today's project entails, shall we? So our project today is this simple textured scarf using one skein of yarn. It is pretty simple to do, pretty straightforward, and it's a 3-row repeat once you get your setup rows done. Today we're going to be using the Stylecraft Special DK. It's a size 3 weight yarn, and this is the colour denim. The other things you're going to need today is a pair of scissors, a yarn needle to sew in your ends, and if you're a beginner, I would recommend using 2 stitch markers. I'm going to be using a size 5mm hook today, so let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is start with our slip knot. So I'm going to make a loop around my finger with the short side coming out to the right. Going to pop my hook into the loop, holding it where the cross is. I'm going to loop the yarn from back to front around my hook and pull it through the loop, and then I'm just going to tighten it up. Not too tight, you don't want it too tight, because if it's too tight, you just got to put your tension off. It's going to make it harder to do the next round. Okay, so we're going to do 16 chain. Now the really good thing about this pattern is that there are no specific numbers of stitches that you have to do for each repeat, because it's just simple double and half double crochets all the way through. You can make it as wide or as thin as you need to. So I'm going to start this one off. I'm going to do 16 chain. So yarn over and through the loop, that's 1 chain. Yarn over 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16. So there is my chain of 16. Now you don't want to do it too tight, because otherwise it's going to make it really hard to get your hook in through the tops of those stitches for the next row. Okay, again, the loop on your hook never counts as a stitch, so we're going to skip the first chain and we're going to go into the second one from the hook. So we're going to do single crochet across the whole row. So we're going to go into the top. I like to go into the top of my foundation chain, because that gives me 2 strands of yarn on the bottom, so the bottom part of the V and the back bump, and that, for me, that just makes a nice strong sturdy base to start with. So I'm going to skip the first one. I'm going to single crochet into the top of the second hook from second loop, my goodness, the second stitch from the hook. So I'm going to put my hook through the stitch, having a moment today, capture the yarn and pull it through, and I've got 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to wrap the yarn from back to front. I'm going to hold my work so that I don't stretch it out too much, and I'm going to pull that yarn through both loops on my hook. That's a single crochet. If you're not sure how to do that, I do have videos on each of these stitches. So we're going to go again into the top of the next stitch, capture the yarn and pull it through, yarn over and through both loops. So we're just going to do this all the way along. So at the end we should have 15 single crochet stitches, and I'll show you how to count so that you know that you've got the right number of stitches, and also where you're going to be stitching into for the next row. So this foundation chain that we did at the bottom and our single crochet, which is a setup row, is always just a slight bit different to how you're working the rest of the piece. So I'm just going semi-slow. Take your time, make sure your chain's not twisted. If you've got one that's got a bump on the back, just turn it over so that you've got little V's facing you all the way along. So into the top of the next one, And you can see that I'm really not pulling tight. My tension is nice and loose. It's going to give it a nice drape, and it's also going to help you work your stitches into the row below. There are so many different ways of how to hold hooks, of how to hold your yarn, and I'm just going to tell you now, whichever way is the most comfortable for you and works is the right way for you. Don't let anybody tell you that you're doing it wrong. If it works for you and your pattern works out, it's not wrong at all. Okay, so I'm just going to pull my yarn, take my hook out. I'm going to lay it down. So this is what your foundation chain and your first row should look like. So if you have a look at your work and hold it on the side, you can see all these little V's. All those V's are your stitches, okay? So we're going to start from here, from the back. We're going to count, make sure we've got 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now that 15th one can be a little bit hard to see. So this is where I'm going to get you to take your stitch marker, and I'm going to get you to find that V from that number 15, and I'm going to get you to put your stitch marker in here. That is the stitch that you're going to work into when we get to the end. Okay, here's for the next row. So the next row, so we've just finished off our single crochet into our last stitch of our foundation chain. We've got 15 stitches, that's great. So we're going to do a chain stitch and turn our work, because we're going to be working into those V's, those stitches. So this is how we're going to do a half a double crochet. So we're going to wrap our yarn around our hook first, and we're going to find our first stitch. Now just be careful that you don't work into this hole here, because that is the chain from the first row. So turn your work over, just turn your work a little bit, find that where that V is, go through the little gap underneath the 2 strands of yarn, because if you have a look closely, there is our stitch, the V stitch, and we've just worked underneath it. You're going to capture your yarn and pull it through the stitch, and you're going to have 3 loops on your hook. Now because this is a half double crochet, we're going to wrap our yarn around our hook back to front just like normal, and we're actually going to pull it through all 3 loops that are on the hook. Now don't be afraid to hold your work and pull up on those stitches a little bit, because it opens up the gap to get your hook through. So pull it through all 3 stitches, and that's a half double crochet. Now here's a tip for beginners. I'm going to get you to put your stitch marker into that half double crochet we've just created. So pull your loop out, take your hook out, and find that V that you've just made. That is your half double crochet stitch. Put your stitch marker in it. Make sure you're capturing the 2 V's, because that's what you're going to work into when we get back to this side. Sometimes it's a little hard to see, especially if you're a beginner and you're not sure what stitches look like. So I don't normally do it, but it's a good recommendation if you're just starting out. Okay, so we're going to go to the next stitch. So pull your work apart a little bit, and you can see here is your next stitch, so half double crochet. So yarn over through the stitch, which you'll capture your V on. Capture your yarn and pull it through the stitch, 3 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull it through all 3 loops. We'll do it again, yarn over, through the stitch, capture your yarn, pull it through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull it through. So yarn over into the stitch, capture your yarn, 3 loops, yarn over through all 3 loops on your hook, yarn over into the stitch, capture your yarn, yarn over through all 3 loops on your hook. So we're just going to do this all the way across the row. Now you can count as you go if you like. At night time my husband watches things like, you know, Walking Dead, The 100, all that sort of interesting TV. And so I sit there with him, and I'm quite happily sitting there counting my stitches from each row as I go. Counting is very good for mindfulness. You can get very quite fast at doing this. Work as slow as you need. Patience is a virtue. Patience is not something that I am very good at. But if you're trying to work on a new stitch or a new style of doing things, just be gentle with yourself. You'll get it eventually. Just persevere and work your way through. Okay, so I'm on to my second last stitch. So if I didn't have that stitch marker in, you would probably think that you were done. Okay? So it's really important, especially as a beginner, it's really important to count your stitches. Now I know that this is my first stitch because that's where my stitch marker is. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Aha, I do have another one. Luckily, I've got my stitch marker in. So I'm going to pop that out. Going to wrap my yarn, and I'm going to go through those stitches where my stitch marker was. Pull it through, do my half double crochet, and that is that row there. And that's what it should look like. Okay, let's move on to the next row. So the next row is a simple double crochet, but this time we're only going to go through, so see your V stitches, we're going to go through the back loop. Okay, so let's get there and I'll show you. So we're going to do a chain 1, we're going to turn our work, and we're going to find our V's. Now to make sure that our edges are nice and sturdy, we're going to do just a straight double crochet into the first stitch. Okay, so double crochet is yarn over, through the stitch, capture your yarn, 3 loops on your hook, just like the half double crochet. But this time we're doing a full double crochet, so we're going to yarn over and just go through the first 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and go through the second loop, 2 loops on your hook, and that is a double crochet. So we're going to do the same thing across the row, except we're going to work into not the front loop of our V, we're just going to work into the back loop. So sometimes it works to hold your yarn and just turn it sideways, so that back loop is really easy to see. So yarn over, turn your work, find that back loop, put your hook through, capture your yarn, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2. Oh, I've split my stitch. Yarn over, pull through 2. So it's just a normal double crochet, but it's through the back loop only. Now it is going to pull a little bit on that back stitch, but that's okay. It's okay because it's going to make the front loop stand out, and that's going to give us the little ridge that's on here, and that's what we're looking for. Okay, so we're going to do it again. Yarn over, find that back loop, turn your work towards you so you can see your V's clearly. Go through the back loop, capture your yarn, pull it through, yarn over, through 2, yarn over, through 2. Okay, so again, through the back loop, yarn through 2, through 2, yarn over, back loop, capture your yarn, yarn over, through 2, yarn over, through 2. Just untangle my little bit of yarn in here. Okay, alright, so we're going to do this across the row except for the last stitch, and that's where your stitch marker would be. See, I forgot because I don't normally do it. Okay, we need to go back and find our first double crochet. Okay, so we're not counting the chain 1 on the end, but if we turn our work, we can see that we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 double crochets so far. So I'm just going to pop that stitch marker into that last stitch, into the first stitch, so that when we work our way back, we know exactly where we're going to put our stitch. So we don't have any gaps and we know exactly where we're going. Sorry about that. Like I said, I don't normally do this, but for beginners, it just makes it really easy to identify where it is you have to work through. All right, so let's just complete this row, working double crochets, back loop only, across the row, and at the end we should have 15. So yeah, see how when I'm working, I'm actually pinching my work, turning it towards me, and you can really clearly see those V's. And that's what we're going to do. We're nearly there. If I'm working too fast for you, you can actually go into the settings of the video and slow it down a little bit, or you can pause the video and work it out and then press play again. Or if you have somebody who knows what they're doing and I'm going too slow, you can always speed me up. Okay, now I'm onto the last stitch in the row, which is where my stitch marker is. So this one's going to be a full double crochet through both parts of the stitch. Pop my stitch marker out, do my last one, double crochet, and I'm going to count my stitches. So here's my number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I know that I'm on the right track. And you can see already we've got our nice little ridge happening. Okay, so let's start the next row. So we're going to chain 1, turn our work. Now, this row here is just straight double crochet all the way across. There's nothing fancy, it's just double crochet. So yarn over into our first stitch, capture the yarn, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the first 2. Next stitch, yarn over into the stitch, pull it through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So we're just going to do our double crochets right across the row. Double crochet is my favorite stitch. It's, apart from a treble, it's the tallest stitch. It's probably the most common stitch. I've got another little yarny knot here, and I love it. It is my favorite stitch to do. I can go quite fast. Let me just pull some more yarn out of my skein here. Okay, so we're just going to go all the way across, double crochet, and you're going to end up, oh, what did I not do again? I did not put my stitch marker in my first stitch. So you don't have to do this, but trust me, if you're just beginning, sometimes this stitch at the end is really hard to see, and if you miss it, you're going to have wonky edges. It's going to look really weird. Okay, there's one of my 3 roosters. It's kind of quiet here today. Mr. David's gone to work on a Sunday, which gives me a little bit of videoing time. So you'll hear lots of noises going on out there. It's a drizzly, wet, drizzly, cold and windy day here today, and so the wind chimes are going. There's a random crow, because it's winter, there's a random crow that's here visiting. The roosters, the chickens will be clucking. I've got 2 big dogs, my Maynard and my Miss Lola girl. Alright, so we're back at the end, and you know that you're not finished yet. if I take that stitch marker out, you'll see what I mean. Now, if I take my stitch marker out, does that not look like that row's sort of finished? But it's not. There is still one more stitch that we have to work into. So when you get to the end of each row, please count your stitches, okay? So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Oh dear, there's one missing. And if you turn your work on the side, you can see that V, which is normally what I do, but I've been crocheting for a little while. So now I have my 15. Okay, so that was actually our first repeat. So all we're going to do is repeat our half double crochet, our double crochet into the back loop, and our double crochet rows, and that's what you're going to repeat for the whole length of the blanket. So let's do another repeat, and that's what's going to give you the ridge. So the ridge is going to be on one side because it's a repeat of 3. So it's the ridging is going to happen on one side for the first repeat. It's going to happen on the other side for the second repeat, which is how you get the really cool double-sided ridgy. So it doesn't really matter with your scarf, and I really like that. Okay, so we've done our 15. Let's do the next lot of repeats. So we're going to do one chain. Oh my goodness, I need a sip of coffee because I'm losing it. Okay, so we've done a chain. We're going to turn our work, and we're going to do our half double crochet into the first stitch. So yarn over into the stitch, yarn over, 3 loops on our hook, and we're going to yarn over and go through all 3 stitches. Pop your stitch marker into that V that you've just created, because that's the stitch. Oh, I've split my yarn. That's the stitch that you're going to be working into when we get back to this side. And we're just going to half double crochet all the way across. So yarn over, through the stitch, yarn, pull the yarn through, 3 loops, yarn over, and through all 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over. If you need to stretch it out a little bit, it just makes it easier to see that hole, that gap of the stitch. Make sure you don't go in between the stitches, because that's just going to make it, again, weird. So you need to make sure that you're working into the actual stitch, so underneath that V. So again, if you want to turn your work sideways to make sure that you're working into the right part of the stitch, if that's what works for you, that's great. So, and again, sometimes I do that, make sure that I haven't captured or split my yarn and working through other pieces. But don't be afraid to pull it apart, just gently. It will show you exactly where the stitches are you've got to work. Remember, we're working into the stitch, not in between the stitches. Okay, so let's do another half double crochet. So yarn over into the stitch, capture the yarn, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. So yarn over into the stitch, capture your yarn, yarn over through all 3. And again, the more you practice, the more fluid you get with the movements. And yeah, it's truly crocheting for me is truly calming, helps with mindfulness. If you've got a really simple pattern to do, for example, granny stitches, granny square, even something as simple as this is just calming. You just sit and just do it, get with the rhythm. Did you see what I did there too? My yarn was going to split. If your yarn is pulling against you, just stop and have a look, because sometimes you might have the yarn may have split. It might be the hook that you're using, or sometimes certain brands of yarn are known for splitting terribly. So if your yarn is pulling against you, just stop and have a look, and it will tell you that there's something wrong. Okay, so I'm back at the last stitch. So take out my stitch marker, yarn over, go through my V, yarn over, 3 loops, yarn over, go through all 3 loops, chain 1, and turn my work. Again, I need some more yarn out of my skein. Okay, so we've done our half doubles. Now we're going to do our double crochet into the back loop only, except for the first stitch and the last stitch, because we want it to stay straight and we want it to be nice and sturdy. So we're going to go yarn over through the first stitch. Make sure we're doing both loops on that stitch. Yarn over 3 loops, yarn over through the first 2, yarn over through the first 2. Okay, that's our stitch. Pop our stitch marker back into that stitch so that we know that when we get to the end, that's where we're working. And we're going to be doing our back loop only, double crochet back loop only. So yarn over, turn your yarn so you can see your V stitches, and we're going to go through the back loop, yarn over, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, through 2, yarn over, through 2. Now you might notice that I'm actually holding my work. I do that a lot, but especially if I'm working through the back loops, because it will stretch, it will pull quite naturally, and that's fine, but I just don't want to overdo it. And especially, again, if you're new, you're probably trying to get your tension right so that you're not sure about, you know, how tight to pull. Maybe it's really, really loose. So like I said, I just tend to hang on to my work so it doesn't overstretch, and I can try and keep my tension the same. Okay. I've really been enjoying, I've made 4 now of these. See how my yarn split? So yeah, just to make sure that you've got all of the ply. Yeah, I've really enjoyed making these. I've made 4 now. Like I said, I'm going to give them to the school where I teach for our fete that's coming up. And I'm going to try and design some matching beanies with this same stitch repeat so that the beanies and the scarves match. So almost across the row. And remember, the last one that we're going to do is a full double crochet to just make our edges nice and strong. So that's number 14. Take out my stitch marker, yarn over through that stitch, yarn over, and just double crochet. Chain 1, turn our work. We're on to the next row, which is the last row of the 3-row repeat. See how quick and easy this is? Sorry, I'm bashing things around. And we're going to do a double crochet in every stitch all the way across. So yarn over into the first stitch, capture your yarn. Oh, sorry, helps if I'm on camera, right? And through 2, yarn over through 2. Put your stitch marker in your first stitch so that you know where you're coming back to. Try not to split your yarn if you can help it. And we're just going to double crochet all the way across. So the half double crochet is the shortest stitch, and it's the one that we're doing the back loop only into, and so that's what makes the texture, what makes it pop out. So we're just double crocheting across the row. See, I've split my yarn again, and it does, it kind of pulls. Again, you listen to your yarn, it tells you if there's something wrong. There's a bit of fluff, a bit of something. So I'm hoping that you're enjoying this tutorial. Let me know if you make one. Just pop it down in the comments if you're going to make one, if you'd like to make one, what color you'd make it in, and also, if you don't mind, can you hit that like button? It just helps to it helps YouTube spread the love and put me out there. I'm only a very small channel. I don't expect to go very far, but I'm just doing this because I like helping people and I love to crochet, and if I can show you how to do it, that's great. Okay, so we're on our last one, so just pop that out and double crochet into that last stitch, if I can find the yarn. Where's my V? There it is. Now, seeing I'm careful, I really didn't want to go into that hole, into that gap, because that's just going to throw everything off. Okay. Alright, so that's our 3-row repeat. So what do we have to do to start again? We're going to chain 1. The start of the repeat is the half double crochet. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to half double crochet across the row. So chain 1 and turn your work. Do a half double crochet in that first stitch. Pop your stitch marker in. And off you go. Half double crochet all the way across. If you haven't, you can always subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. And if you hit the notification bell, it will let you know when I do post stuff, new things up on the channel. It's not a lot of things. It's just when I can get a chance to do it. I do work full time, and we have got a little bit of property here. We're mostly outside, and we live in a little shed, so trying to find a quiet time and space to do it is can be challenging sometimes. So I'm going to try and get a few videos done on the Sundays where Mr. David is working, so that I can keep you guys up to date with different topics. There's a little video coming up in the next day or so about yarn weights and what they're called in different countries. Okay, so I'm up to my last stitch. I'm going to pop my stitch marker out to my last half double crochet into that stitch. So yeah, if you hit the notification bell, it'll tell you when that video pops up. Okay, so that's the first row of our repeat. We're going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to do a full half double crochet into the first stitch. Pop our stitch marker back in. And we're going to double crochet, but we're going to do it in the back loop only. So you got to remember the middle row of our repeat is the back loop only one, and you'll be fine. You won't even have to look at the pattern after a little while. It'll just come naturally. So back loop only, double crochet all the way across. The rain has started again. I'm glad I was out in the veggie patch yesterday. I planted some more tomatoes because the frost got the last lot. It is winter here in Australia at the moment. It totally burnt my little corn that had come up. I have got pak choy and bok choy coming up wild down there, which is great. I just go and harvest. It's growing in the grass. What else did I plant yesterday? I planted some more sage and some basil to go with the tomatoes when they get going. I planted some more spinach and silver beet. My snow peas are looking great. They got a little bit burnt by the frost as well, but I've got a bit of shade cloth over the top of them at the moment, so that kind of protected them. What else do you like to do in your spare time? We like to go bushwalking too. Alright, so here's the last stitch, which is a full double crochet into both parts of the stitch. Okay, and we're on to the last part of our repeat. So I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and we're just going to straight double crochet all the way across this row. So yeah, pop in the comments, what are some things that you like to do in your spare time? So we are revegetating our 3-acre block with native trees. We've got probably 1,000 trees that we've planted since we've been here. I've got ducks and chickens, and the big veggie patch. We've got a fruit orchard, which really needs some work. Lots of other little gardens with not so native plants in them. Oh, I've got jonquils. My jonquil bulbs have come up. They're beautiful. they're on their way out, but I do have my daffodil bulbs that are coming up. So once the jonquils are gone, the daffodils will be here, and that will be beautiful. I've also got some red ranunculus, I think they're called, bulbs out there too. So they're growing, the bulbs are growing, but there's no sign of any flowers at the moment. Okay, growing those flowers are quite unusual for Far North Queensland, but because we're up on the Atherton Tablelands, it gets cold enough to be able to grow those beautiful flowers. Okay, last stitch. So we're going to go last double crochet into that one. And that's our repeat. So you can see our half double crochet, and it's the ridge is happening because we've then done the back loop only into the top of it, and then our double crochet. So this is what your scarf will be looking like. You'll notice that the edges are nice and straight. The texture is on both sides, and as you go through, it's just going to grow and grow and grow. So I'm going to pause it here and let's keep on going, and I'll come back later and I'll show you the totally finished product. I hope that you're doing well with this. Leave any comments down below, and I'll finish off with some pictures at the end. Thank you. Okay, so we're almost at the end of our scarf. So I've just got a few more double crochets to do here in the last row of the repeat. And what I have done is I have done 60 of the 3-row repeats to get the length of our scarf. So just find that last stitch, that last V. Of course, my last one's going to give me the hard time. That's okay, pop it in there. And that is 60 of the 3-row repeats. So the half double crochet round, the back loop, double crochet, back loop only, and double crochet. I've done 60 of those all together. And when we finish, I'll actually measure it. I've got my cute little cat tape measure, and we'll give it a measure and see how long it ends up. Okay, now to finish this off, because we started way down here somewhere, because we started with our chain row foundation, which doesn't count, but we did a single crochet row before we got into our half double crochets. So what we're going to do to finish it off is we're going to, let me just get the bulk of this out of the way so we can see what we're doing. And we're going to chain 1, turn our work just like normal, and we're going to work a half double crochet all the way across. So of course we should all have the count of 15 in our heads, because we still should have 15 stitches all the way across the row. And even I make mistakes. There's been twice during my 60 rows of the 3-row repeat that I ended up with a count of 16 stitches. Like, even I make mistakes if I don't check my rows. So both times were different mistakes. So and I had to pull out, rip it, so frog it. I had to frog at least 3 rows. My yarn's all tangled up here. I had to frog at least 3 rows to get back to my mistake. Okay, so I'm almost there. Okay, so just finishing off with our half double crochet row. When we get to the end, we're just going to double check that we have 15. Yeah, for some reason, way down here somewhere, I'd put 2 double crochets into a stitch here somewhere, And the other time I had 16, I'd done 2 in the end loop for some reason. Who knows what I'm doing, you know? All right, so let's just double check, make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Awesome. I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to single crochet all the way along to the end, and that will be where we finish. So it's through under the stitch, capture our yarn over, pull it through the 2 loops on our hook. So it's the same as how we started. We're going to end with a row of single crochet, which just then mirrors what we did at our beginning. And so when you hold our 2 ends together, they're going to look the same. Because if you look here, we'll have single crochet, half double crochets, and then we're going into our double crochets, which is what we've got on the other end. The hardest part with this row, our single crochet to finish row, is to not do a yarn over first, like a double crochet or a half double. We're just doing single crochets. Okay, so we're nearly at the end. Oh, there's a chicken just out there. The chickens are out, the ducks are out, roosters are going off. Why do my roosters crow at all hours of the day and night? Does anyone know? Can you leave a comment? Tell me down at the bottom. Why do my roosters crow all day and night? Okay, so we've finished off with a half double crochet and a single crochet. We're going to do a single crochet and pull it through, and then we're going to clip our yarn. Snip! And we're just going to pull that all the way through, pull it tight, and that's how we end off. Okay, so I'm just going to pop this over here, and I'm going to grab my darning needle, my yarn needle. So it's not particularly sharp, and it does have a big eye. Now some of them, and I'll show you in comparison, some of these are quite thick, some of them have quite a large eye, and all depends on the type of yarn that you're using is which needle you're going to use at the end. So I'm going to use my little one, and I'm just going to fold my yarn over the top of my needle. I'm going to give it a little bit of a pinch, and I'm going to just back and forwards push that pinched part through the eye of the needle, and that is threaded. Easy, right? Okay, so I'm going to turn it so it's on the wrong side, and I'm going to go back through my V stitch here, and I'm going to go into just any one of these stitches. Oh, I popped out of where I wanted to go, and I'm just going to pop it back in. I don't particularly like to run it across the top of that row because it'll distort our finishing row, but we can just go along. I'm probably going to take it down to, oh my goodness, my yarn's not cooperating. Probably going to take it down to this row, and I'm just going to run it under some stitches, fair way along. Now this is the place where if you split some yarn and go through and under, and that's fine because it's going to make it harder to come undone. So we're just going to pull that through. We're not going to pull too tight because we don't want to distort our corner. I'm going to go back through different sets of stitches, and I'm going to go back the way I came, see if I can catch some of the yarn that I've just brought through with me. Again, it's caught on itself, it's going to be harder to undo. Pull it through, and really truly for me 3 times the charm. So I'm going to go back probably up here. That's one of my wine dots, my red what are they, gold laced wine dots. My hens, they make the ugliest, weirdest chicken noises I've ever heard in my life. They're funny little chickies. Alright, and I'm just going to pull it through. Pull my end through. Just make sure I haven't distorted anything. And I'm just going to clip that off there. Okay, so very hard to see where I have put that end into. And then I'm going to go down all the way down to the other end. And this is our, welcome to my life, dust, dog hair and grass. Dust and dog hair. Okay, and I'm going to sew in. So this is our original corner, and there is a bit of a hole. That's okay, we're going to fix that. So again, I'm going to take my needle. I've got some yarn here. I'm going to fold it in half, give it a pinch, and back and forth through the eye of my needle to catch all of the strands. And then I'm just going to, again, go through that stitch, go back into here somewhere, and just pull it through. Again, I'm not going to pull too tight. Which side comes through? And that's fixed up the hole on the corner. And so now I'm just going to go across sideways, so duck under that one, duck through there. Yep. Now I don't have a lot here, so I'm just going to split that, make sure I haven't distorted my corner at all, and see if I can manage, because my tail is not particularly long, see if I can manage to get it back through the other way, and I think I will. I don't think I'll get my preferred 3 times through, but I'm very confident that that won't come undone. Okay, so that's nice and tight. Grab my scissors, and I'm going to snip it. So that is both ends completed. Oh my goodness. Let's pop that up here. So that is both ends completed. They both look the same, beginning and end. If you flip it over that way, they both look the same. So they match. Now I do have some yarn left over, and what you could do is cut a few tassels like this and thread them through, so you've got some tassels hanging from the end of your scarf, which would look kind of cute. Or you could also match it with a beanie. I have a tutorial for a simple beanie on my channel, and if I can work out how to do that, I'll link it below. Let's measure this, shall we? Let's pull out my kitty cat's ear. I'm not sure how long this is, but let's go. Centimeters would be great. So we'll just see how far we got with this. Alright, so we'll go to there, that's 40. So you do actually get quite a long scarf from your skein of yarn, and I obviously could have gone further. So I'm up to 120. Alright, so I'm up to 150. Now that's not bad because I'm 152 centimeters, so it's longer than me. Find my kitty cat's ear again. 150. There you go. Or 180 centimeters. 181-ish. So put some tassels on it. It will look amazing, and I think what I'll do is the rest of my yarn is I might make a, I am going to make the simple beanie that's on in my other tutorials. Go and check that out. Please, on your way out, I really hope you've enjoyed doing this pattern with me, and that you've had some feeling of accomplishment. If you stuck all the way through and you've done the 60 rows of repeats, you are amazing. Thank you very much for staying with me all the way to the end. If you could hit the like button on the way out, that would be great. If you could also hit the subscription button and that notification bell, so that when I do put on new tutorials that you get notified of it. Leave a comment below. Number 1, tell me why my roosters are crowing day and night. But also let me know, how did you go? Did you make this pattern? What colour did you make it with? Are you going to make the matching beanie? And even leave a suggestion on what you'd like me to make next, to do a tutorial of next. So thanks very much for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye from Puddingwood Avenue. Thanks again for watching. Click the like like button if you like what you've seen today, and leave a comment below. Have I inspired you to have a go at your own project? Remember to click on the subscribe icon and also the notification bell so you'll know when I post my next video. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!